Go the Distance, Chapter 29, The End of the River. Almost to the end of the river, Persephone announced. Meg took a few shaking breaths as Katerina patted her back. Enough tears now, Meg, she told herself, and squared her shoulders. She lifted her head lighter. You need your strength for whatever comes next. Meg watched as Karen's boat approached the large opening. Beyond it, she could see that fog that covered the lake at the entrance of the earth. The fog thickened as they neared, and the souls below them began to quiet. Would Hera let them pass? Or were she and Katerina about to return directly to a triumphant Hades? Meg had missed her deadline, but she'd also fought her way out of the darkness and won. Even if she couldn't become a god and be with Hercules, Katerina deserved to be returned to Aegeus and Cassia. Please let her live, Meg prayed to Hera, as the boat reached the end of the river. I understand now what you tried to teach me with this quest. If one truly wants to live, they need to open their hearts to others, and I have. No matter what comes next for me, I know I loved and was loved in return. I will carry that thought with me for the rest of the days if you let me. Please allow us to pass. Karen broke out of the cave into the lake, and Meg felt Katerina's hand slip from her own. Meg watched in wonder as the woman's pale form began to brighten. Katerina's hands and arms started to glow orange along with the rest of her body. Her tan dress faded away, replaced with one as yellow as the sun. Color returned to Katerina's cheeks, and then finally the woman inhaled sharply, air filling her lungs for the first time in months. She cried out and looked at Meg in surprise. I'm alive? You're alive, Meg shouted, and the two women embraced as Persephone watched them, her eyes sparkling. And so am I, Meg thought. Thank you, Hera. Thank you. She inhaled deeply. The smells of burning and decay were gone. In the distance, she could swear she smelled pomegranate seeds. We made it, Katerina said. Oh, Megara, how can I ever repay you? She reached out for Meg and started to cry again. As Meg hugged Katerina, she couldn't help thinking about the fact that she was embracing the very person she resented for far too long. Now they were both free. Katerina would get to live her life and be there to watch her daughter grow up. Meg had helped to make that happen. This is the end of the ride, Karen said as the boat came to a sudden stop. Thanks, Karen, said Persephone. See you in a few months. The ferryman shrugged his bony shoulders. Persephone looked at Meg. And you, thank you for helping Hades and me, and for making things infinitely more interesting. You're welcome, Meg responded. And thank you for making the case for us to leave. Persephone smiled and held out her hand. Good luck, Megara. You too, Meg said. But, any chance you could get us to shore before you go? Not a problem. Persephone snapped her fingers, and the three of them found themselves on dry land. Meg felt the grass beneath her feet and the feel of solid ground again, and whooped with happiness. The fog started to fade. The river Archeon, where she had toiled for days, started to appear through the mist. She and Katerina hugged again. I'm off to see my mother and show her my ring, Persephone said, her voice gleeful as she admired it in the light. She looked at Katerina. You take care of that child of yours. A seedling needs proper love and care, you hear me? Yes, Katerina said. I will love her with my whole heart. Persephone nodded, and with one final look at the two women, she snapped her fingers and disappeared. Who was that, by the way? Katerina asked. And Meg couldn't help laughing, realizing with all that had happened she'd never gotten the chance to explain. That was Persephone, the goddess of vegetation. Katerina's eyes widened. We were riding with a god? Meg laughed harder. It felt good after 10 rough days, and yet she still couldn't help thinking of what she'd lost during that time, too. She might have been freed from the underworld, but it looked like she would be staying earthside. Hercules was hers to love no more. Come on, let's get you home. She looked around, wondering if they could fashion themselves a boat, but it was too far to walk. The river had more trails than it did triumphs, and the thought of the Cimmerian birds was enough to make her want to stay at the edge of the shore permanently. Suddenly, she heard a neigh and looked up. Pegasus was flying towards them.